We're ready.
Yes, we are. Good evening, and welcome to the City Council meeting of March the 4th. We're certainly happy that everybody is here. We are going to have an invocation. Brittany, come up, please. Thank you.
If you wouldn't mind bowing your heads with me, thank you. Heavenly Father, we thank you for this evening. We thank you for all of those that are present, and we especially thank you for the beautiful city of Canyon Lake. We ask for a special blessing over this meeting tonight. I pray, Lord, that the words that are spoken tonight would be honorable and that you would be glorified through them. I pray, God, that there would be hearts open, ready to receive, and ears ready to listen and to understand. We pray, Lord, over the state of California as well, just knowing that we're in an election year, and we just ask, Lord, that your blessing would be upon our state, our county, our city officials, and we pray, Lord, that we would represent you well. We also pray specifically for first responders who selflessly sacrifice so much to serve and protect. Doctors, nurses, EMTs, police, fire, so many, and of course those in the armed forces that fight daily so that we're able to enjoy the many freedoms that we experience. I also thank you so much for our council members and just their sacrifice as they're stepping away from other things that they often need to tend to in order to serve our city. And so we just thank you so much for this evening and ask for your special blessing upon it. It's in your son's name that we pray. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. I believe I neglected to give you the time, which is 6:32. I believe we'll start the meeting. I think we have the Vice President of the POA here. Would you be kind enough, Mr. Bowman, to lead us in the flag salute?
I'd be very happy to.
Thank you.
Please join me. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And we have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Bonner.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo.
Here.
Councilmember Green.
Here.
Councilmember Smith.
Here.
Mayor Aaron
Here.
All present.
Thank you. Do we have anything to report on the closed session?
Mayor, we do not have anything to report out of closed session at this time.
Thank you. Then I entertain a motion to approve the city council agenda.
I move. Second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Next item of business is ceremonial matters, and I believe that our city clerk has something that she would like to present to somebody.
Thank you, Mayor. It is not on the agenda tonight, but staff just would like to recognize that March is Councilmember Larry Green's birthday. And so we have a little card. If Councilmember Green will come up, please.
The whole month?
Well, Jordan, are you going to sing?
Early birthday.
Don't have to ask me twice.
Wow. I don't know what to say.
Happy birthday to you.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Larry. Happy birthday to you.
Woo! Thank you. Party time.
Pass the cake.
Pass it around.
Oops, sorry. Next item of business is community reports, and I believe we have EDMWD, Darcy Burke is here.
Thank you, Mayor Aaron Kranz, council, staff, guests, and residents. If you recall, last month, staff came from Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District and did a presentation on the PFOA and PFOS emerging contaminant situation in the state of California, and literally 2 days after our meeting, they set their new standards. So it was very timely. The new standard will be 10 for PFOA and a cumulative of 40 for PFAS. And I know those numbers don't make a lot of sense, but there's at least 31 constituents in the PFAS family. So all of them together, if you test positive for all of them together, they can't exceed 40. PFOA by itself cannot exceed 10. Canyon Lake has tested between 12 and 18 on PFOA alone. So those are the notices you've gotten. You've each gotten a letter regularly about that. And that was an advisory. Doesn't mean you had to take it out of service prior, but now it means you either have to take it out of service or treat it. So we have been working since this mandate came down and we were testing the lake as to what we were going to do. Typically, we turn the lake, the treatment plant on April 1st. So we are running a pilot program for the first part of that operation using a treatment process called granulated activated carbon, which I know is way too much information for you, but it's a known treatment to remove PFOA and PFOS. That is a pilot program to see how the plant performs. It will require some additional minimal investment up front. We have delayed issuing the refurbishment of the treatment plant to determine what we need to do. So I think that was very prudent, not spending money and then having to go back and spend more. So we're kind of in a wait and see. So I wanted to just let you know that's what's happening. We have one other well that we'll be taking out of service because there's no easy way to treat it and there's no way to blend it with imported water. If we have to take those sources out of service that have tested beyond the recommendation of the state. Now that's not a maximum contaminant level, and I know there's a lot of terms flowing around here. It's a recommendation. But to be quite frank, if the state tells you to take it out of service, I see that more as a recommendation, and that's what we're going to follow. We would have to replace that water with import water. So you're looking at about between $500 and $800 for groundwater or Canyon Lake water to be replaced with $1,100 an acre foot. So there is a significant cost impact that we would have to address and figure out how we're going to manage. So it's just a conversation we need to start having, and we'll be watching the results to see how we go and what we're going to do next. The other thing I just wanted to mention briefly, over the next 3 weeks, we'll be flushing the system. So what does that mean? That means you'll be opening hydrants and you're going to see water and sediment come out of the system. If you have cloudy water or you notice that you have sediment in your faucets, ideally you open the hose bib on the front of the house and the back and let it run for 2 minutes. If it continues to be cloudy, call the water district and we can send a water quality team out to address it. You may think that's wasting water. It actually isn't. It goes through the stormwater system and actually goes back into Canyon Lake. So we're not, quote unquote, losing any water, and it maintains a healthy system and it's better for everybody. It does address some of the taste and odor issues when you have stagnant water sit for a while with all that sedimentation, and now that the wet season's soon to be over, we're just going to flush it out. So if anybody has any questions, they can always call me. They can call the water district. Happy to answer any questions now of any of you.
Okay, let's know any questions.
Thank you for the update.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Next, we have a report from Ann Meyer from RCTC. And thank you for coming. I won't have to give the report on what you said at WRCOG on Monday.
I'm glad that I can be of service, and I apologize you have to listen to me twice this week.
It's a pleasure, thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm really pleased to be here this evening. Again, I'm Ann Mayer, the Executive Director of the Riverside County Transportation Commission, and I'm here this evening to share with you the draft traffic relief plan that the Commission has out now for public review and comment. Before I get into the conversation about the draft traffic relief plan, I would like to be able to share some information about RCTC itself. You may have some people here in the audience who are unfamiliar with the Commission and its work. So RCTC is the regional county-wide transportation planning agency. We administer local, state, and federal funding that comes through for transportation for the entirety of Riverside County. The board there are 33 elected officials on the board, all 5 county supervisors, and an elected official from each city within the county. You are very ably represented by Councilmember Bonner at RCTC. We appreciate his service and his input. So it truly is a county-wide body that's focused really on looking at not only how we can build and build our infrastructure, provide projects and services, but also make sure we're looking at the future of Riverside County. One of the biggest challenges over the past couple of years has been the fact that the population continues to grow. As a result of the population growth, we're also seeing significant increases in congestion and frankly more demand for transportation services and mobility. So there's a focus now on developing a plan for Western Riverside County. The focus is on quite a few issues. A few of the key components. The commission is looking at a plan that connects communities within Riverside County. We're a very diverse county, many jurisdictions within the county, very diverse, but still important nonetheless to connect our communities together. There's also a focus on reducing traffic congestion. I don't need to tell any of you about the congestion that you see every day in and out of your city, whether you're on the 215, the 15, or here on Railroad Canyon itself. We know that traffic congestion is a huge issue for you and your constituents. There's also a need to focus on improving safety, not only the safety for those traveling by car, but also for those pedestrians, those on bicycles. We're seeing an increase in incidents related to safety, so focusing on safety is important. And while we're talking about focusing on travel within the county, we're also needing to focus on bringing jobs home. One of the biggest challenges we have in Riverside County is that we are home to an awful lot of people who travel to San Diego, Orange, and LA counties to go to work every day. So we're looking at a plan that will help us bring jobs home so that people can live, work, and play in Riverside County. An important component of this plan is the concept of how are we going to pay for it. State and local funding, while it is predictable at this point, it still does not represent a very significant amount of funding for the needs that we have. And just to give you some comparisons, 30 years ago, if you would have asked how much state and federal money pays for transportation improvements and projects and services, the answer would have been about 90% of all transportation funding comes from state and federal levels. Today, we did an analysis of every RCTC budget from 1997 until 2020. That's been flipped on its head. We're now looking at 81% of all transportation funding is coming from local sources. The balance at 19% is from state and federal, and we don't see that changing very much. Now, having our own local sales tax measure here in Riverside County, as well as the TUMP fees that are in place, where development helps pay its fair share, we've got some local funding where we've been able to leverage state and federal funding. We've been able to accomplish an awful lot. But just to give you an idea of just how far the existing funding can stretch, the top bar shows the balance in the highway and road revenue account for Measure A between now and 2039, and it's approximately $1.2 billion. $1.2 billion is an awful lot of money. But when we start talking about the projects that are needed here in Western Riverside County, you can see we very quickly get up to needs in the area of over $6 billion. A couple of the projects down in the lower level, the Mid-County Parkway, a new east-west corridor from the city of Paris to San Jacinto and Hemet. The 79 realignment, a new alignment that runs from the Lamb Canyon area in San Jacinto down to Winchester. And two corridors that I specifically want to point out to you, the Cahelco widening, which is an important east-west corridor to the north of you, providing access between the 15 and the 215, but also the Ethan Eck Expressway, which is a corridor the county of Riverside is looking at, which will connect from Ethan Eck on the 215 into the Lake and Nichols area in the Lake Elsinore area. These are really important corridors, and as you can see, we simply don't have enough funding to build everything that's needed in Western Riverside County. Now, this map that I'm showing you here shows our 10-year delivery plan and the current funding that we have and what we're planning on constructing. You can see there that we've got the existing I-15 project up in the upper left-hand corridor that's under construction that will open later this year. We're showing some improvements that can be done on the Mid-County Parkway, an initial segment, but there's really not a lot of other improvements that you're seeing here on this map. The draft traffic relief plan out on the street has investments throughout Western Riverside County, as well as in the Coachella Valley and the Palo Verde Valley, that focus not only on freeway improvements, but local road improvements, as well as transit and bus services. So this is a pie chart that shows the categories of investment within the draft traffic relief plan. You can see it truly is multimodal. It is covering everything from trails, bicycle, pedestrian facilities, buses, trains, roadways, as well as highway improvements. A couple of key highlights. The plan includes the widening of I-15 from Cojalco in Corona all the way down to the San Diego Riverside County line. I've already mentioned building the Ethan Ave Expressway as well as widening Cojalco Road. There's other interchanges here that we know are important to the communities to be able to not only provide access to citizens, but also to expand your business opportunities as well. But I wanted to point out a couple of key areas related to transit. We have a number of residents here in Riverside County, seniors, disabled, veterans, students who have no way to get where they need to go. They don't have options related to vehicles. They're completely dependent on transit services. So this program provides for reduced fares and support for those who need it most. Also, with respect to the bus system, we're under state mandates to convert all of the transit fleets to zero-emission vehicles. This plan includes full funding for all of our transit districts to be able to make that conversion, buy all new fleets, as well as build the maintenance facilities that they need to take care of it. We've also included funding for expanded rail service between Riverside, Orange, and LA counties. And then finally, this plan would include funding to complete the county's backbone trail system. And so there's a backbone trail along the I-15 corridor as well as the Salt Creek Trail that runs east and west. So it truly is a multimodal plan. When we look at what this plan could bring in terms of funding, and by that plan what I mean is another half-cent sales tax, it could bring approximately $8.6 billion over a 30-year period to the county to invest in projects and programs. Not only would it build those projects and programs, but it would also create significant jobs in the industry. And then the trickle-down effect, if we've got a lot more people working, bringing home solid wages, then they're spending more in the communities, and that creates a lot of indirect jobs as well. So the draft traffic relief plan is up and available at trafficreliefplan.org. It's on the website. People can go look at the plan. There's some interactive components to it where people can click on their area in the county and see what projects are included. There's also a survey where people can provide feedback on the categories that are included in the traffic relief plan, as well as provide comments. We launched this site in the middle of January after the board approved releasing it to the public. We've received over 2,500 completed surveys and over 5,000 comments. So the goal with the release of this plan, the reason it's out for public comment until June 10th, is to make sure that as many residents as possible have the opportunity to provide feedback and comments, and the commission is accepting comments until June 10th. At the June 10th commission meeting, they will consider an approval of a final traffic relief plan. They will also consider whether or not to put a half-cent sales tax to fund this plan on the ballot in November of 2020, so voters can make the choice as to whether or not they are interested in an additional half-cent sales tax to fund these important projects. Now, even if the commission decides not to put this on the ballot, the traffic relief plan still is important because it sets a vision for transportation investment in Riverside County. It highlights the projects and programs that are important, and it gives us a vision to make sure that the investments we make with the money we have are consistent with what people are wanting to see in Riverside County. So with that, I'll complete my presentation. Happy to answer any questions you may have. One final point, very happy to let you know that next week on Wednesday at the commission meeting, the commission will be considering approval of the Railroad Canyon I-15 interchange project. So a construction contract for that project will finally be awarded next week and look for a groundbreaking in May. So we're really excited about that. It's been a long time coming. I know how important it is to your community. So next week is a big week for Railroad Canyon interchange. Again, thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening.
Thank you. Council have any questions?
Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have a report from the President of the Chamber of Commerce, Jeannie Odell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, Ms. Mayor Pro Tem, City Council, and staff. On behalf of Jim Randall and myself, we'd like to thank you for your involvement with our golf tournament this weekend. Looks like it's going to be an exciting time. The rain is now down to 20%, so I think we're looking good. But just to give you a really brief update, thanks to Lee Norris of CLC and Associates, our virtual office is now up and running. You might know Lee as the husband of Marty Norris, in case, because most men are known by their association with their wives. But the next step will be to hire a marketing assistant to begin our rebranding efforts. So that's where we are right now. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was a tough act to follow, so.
Next item of business is public safety reports. I have one from the sheriff, please. And I believe that there are reports on the desk in the back for anybody that needs them.
Ladies and gentlemen, how you guys doing? Lieutenant Sam Warbridge from Parish Sheriff's Station, share with you the March report, which reflects the crime stats for January this year, 2020. First thing to call to your attention at the top, we had a significant spike in calls for service, 522 versus previous 385. A lot of that had to do with additional proactive enforcement that was going on. During that time, if there was a stop, maybe not a citation or some sort of enforcement, they still pulled a call for service that showed generated activity. So I wanted to ensure that there wasn't a crime spike going on during the month of January. It was just additional enforcement going on during that month. The other two areas I wanted to draw attention to were the 9 larceny thefts reported during January. Can you hear me? Okay, sorry. 2 of them were felonies. One was a air conditioning unit from an unoccupied rental unit, and the other one was a theft from ex-boyfriend. The other 7 were misdemeanors, generally very minor thefts. However, we do have investigative leads on 2 of them that our investigators are looking at right now. And the other spike, as you can see on there, is motor vehicle theft. One of them was an attempt, it was not an actual theft. The other one was a theft from a tow truck. The additional 2 vehicles were later recovered in Lake Elsinore. So all 4 vehicles were recovered. There was none actually still outstanding at this time. And then finally, we did have the 5 arrests. The biggest one of note was on the fatal traffic accident that occurred. And it's been filed with the DA. So that's what I have for this month. Is there any questions?
No questions from council? Thank you very much for the report.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Anybody here from the fire department?
No, I don't believe so. However, we would like to let the council and the public know that our battalion chief, Josh Bischoff, has moved on to another assignment. We have a new battalion chief. His name is Mark League, and we've been in contact with him. He forwarded the stats for this month, and he looks forward to coming in the future and getting to know us.
If I may, I'd also like to point out, in the email from Mark, he did mention that there was no responses over 10 minutes. You'll notice that there's only just a few stats.
Okay, so no responses over 10 minutes, no fires.
Yeah.
Just
One
medical?
significant incident report, but nothing over 10 minutes.
Okay, so it looks like 1 hazmat, all medical, no fire. All right.
All's quiet then. Special code enforcement? Gina.
Good evening. I did want to just point out, as far as the city updates, that the most important thing on this list to me is the community cleanup is coming up next month. It's Saturday, April 4th. To the best of my knowledge, Mr. Borja, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is going to take place at the
community church where it normally always is. So look for the times to be determined. Normally it's from 8 o'clock to 1 o'clock, and we're cleaned up and gone by 2. So we do encourage everybody to come out and to bring their documentation that shows that they reside in Canyon Lake, so that we're not disposing of out of the area diversion and resources for those rates.
I have a question. Will there be e-waste pickup?
Yes, we have e-waste, they take concrete, and sometimes, this will be on the flyer, so look for this too, occasionally we're allowed to accept tires, but the tires cannot be on the actual metal rim itself.
What about paint?
We always coincide our April 4th cleanup with the times and hours in Lake Elsinore for the household hazardous waste event. So our hours run the same time as antifreeze, batteries, oil, paint, diabetic medical supplies, sharps and needles of that nature. All of that is taken there at the permanent facility, and it's always for free. Any other questions?
Any questions?
Firearm discharge on the BLM land?
Yeah, we are starting to see some out of the area people that aren't familiar. So on Saturday, the 9th, February 29th, Officer Lopez did come up upon a white Ford pickup where the 2 gentlemen were setting up targets and shooting on the BLM land. So we're looking forward to moving forward with this.
Right.
He felt a little uneasy about that.
Right.
So, yes, sir.
I have a question about the cleanup. Would you accept a very, very, very old outboard motor that hasn't been used in many years?
Yeah, a motor, as long as it could be taken off the truck or the trailer that it's transported on and put into the metals container. So we always have appliances in metals. So yes, we would take that.
What was
No
the
fluids,
question, please?
no fluids in the engine. She was asking if we would take a vehicle engine. Yes, because it's metal, as long as,
Outboard motor, boat.
oh, an outboard boat motor. Yeah, no fluids. Don't bring it with any liquids in it, please. They do take refrigerators, and they have a guy on contract that will drain the fluid. So if you bring a refrigerator, bring the fluid. But call, if you have any questions, we'll happily answer any questions you would have, no matter whether you think it's valid or not, because that's the important questions to ask.
Any other questions?
You're starting the fire and life safety inspections this month?
Yes. We will probably delay it a little bit simply because the inspection program for our residential rentals is taking off. It is flying, and I want to make sure that we're solid on that, and for those that want the inspections right away. So we may, I'm not saying we will, but we may, just depending on the volume that continues to come in to City Hall. We don't want to shortchange anybody on their time. And we're trying to be really flexible.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Gina. Anybody here from Animal Friends of the Valley?
We don't have a representative here, but we do have stats that were included with the rest of your stats, and there's copies on the back counter as well.
Let's see that, okay. Thank you. We were moving on to public comments. I think you're up, Jen.
Thank you. Any person wishing to address the City Council on any matter within the jurisdiction of the city, whether or not it appears on the agenda, is asked to complete a speaker request form available on the back counter. The completed form is to be submitted to the city clerk prior to an individual being heard by the City Council. The City Council may impose a 3-minute limitation upon each person. Any person commenting on an item on the consent calendar or on items not on the agenda may do so now. Any person commenting on a business item or public hearing will be heard at the time that particular item is scheduled on the agenda. The Brown Act does not allow the City Council to discuss matters not on the agenda. Therefore, in response to any person addressing the City Council on items not on the agenda, the City Council may only do the following: refer the matter to staff, ask for additional information or request a report back, or give a very limited factual response. We'll start with Chris Poland.
Good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. I have two items I'd like to talk about. I don't know if you want me to do them one after the other. The first one has to do with the residential rental registration program. I speak to you as a landlord. I received the letter on February 27th, and I want you to know that I am in full support of the program, though I must say I was disappointed that there wasn't a whereas that recognized that there were some of us that were honorable landlords that have great tenants and take good care of our property. At any rate, we intend to comply with the free lease addendum, and I will add that to my leases as they renew. I didn't see that there was any requirement to do that in the interim. The inspection requirement is troublesome, and it appears to me to be of questionable legality. I'm allowed to inspect my property when leases expire and are renewed, and I do that every year, or when they change. As landlords, as I understand it, we don't have the right to insist on inspecting our property in between that. And so that's not clear in the ordinance how that's going to play through, because we're supposed to register our program and get the inspections done. I'd like to see some clarification there. The other thing is I was very pleased to see the self-inspection program as a resident landlord. This is something that I wanted to do immediately. Went down and tried to pick up the certification packet that was referred to in the ordinance, and it's not available yet. Told that the program we would not be eligible for the program in the first year, which I didn't believe was in the ordinance. So I'd like to see you clarify that. I would like to request that you define the inspection program in a way that we can comply legally, either by scheduling it when the leases are being changed out, or taking out those portions of the program that are not legal, and institute the self-inspection program immediately. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay.
Second item.
Let that sink in for a minute. The next thing I'd like to speak to is on behalf of the Canyon Lake POA as their vice president, having to do with the accessory dwelling units that are on the consent agenda for this evening. The POA has been reviewing our CC&Rs with respect to the new state law that ordinance is addressing. We understand and support the ordinance. I mean, we have to support the ordinance. We have a housing problem in California, we support that. We have 3 applications in planning and compliance right now that are in process. There is no questions yet about what's going on, but they're just going through their normal process. Our review of Ordinance 197 and State Law 65853.1 during this review period that we're in right now does raise some questions in our mind. And for the sake of all of us together, and the residents of the POA and of the city, we really would like to identify a way to have a coordinated process in going through with this, and not have this same separated process that we kind of have now. Building department and POA, planning and compliance, had an appeal last night. Guy just went to the wrong place and asked for permission, went ahead and did what he did. Not our fault or yours. It's just one of these things that our residents struggle with. As we understand the state law, the designation that has been identified in the ordinance is based on the adequacy of water, sewer services, and the impact on traffic flow and public safety. And so I have to assume that you have verified that those services are adequate. We are concerned about the impact on traffic flow and public safety as it relates to the property inside the gate. We own all of our streets, of course. We are responsible for that. If you go to the stretch idea of thinking that we're going to have a significant number of these units, which we may, we'll have a significant number of cars, and that has to be dealt with some way, and we'd like to have some clarification there. On the state law, we understand, in my reading, that the setback says that it can be no more than 4 feet from the side or back. And that's pretty strong. We have setbacks in our community on the golf course and on the lake that are 25 feet and greater. Beautiful places to build these kind of units, but at the same time, we have some concerns about having some regulation about how to control that as much as we can. On the lakeside, we have a lot more space than we have on the golf course. It says in the state law that no other local ordinance, policy, or regulation shall be the basis for the delay or denial of a building permit. And that's interesting because we have this situation here where we have 2 permits required to build, and so we think that there needs to be some clarification there. And then we understand that the ordinance needs to be submitted for review within 60 days, so there may be some time crunch about getting this thing done tonight. Maybe there's time to move forward. When we look at ordinance 197, it says that you must have a minimum setback of 4 feet, which we think is different than the maximum setback of 4 feet that it says in the state law. And the whole issue about setbacks and how much it has is something I think needs to be really worked out in the ordinance. I think that needs to be reviewed again. We are concerned about the comments about the prevailing front yard setback, because we also have in our front yards a community setback that can extend up to 12 or even more feet. And so how that fits in with the community setback and the property line is something that hasn't really been sorted out, I don't believe. And then in section 932-100, design and development standards, it really sets out what the city is going to do in terms of design and development standards and architectural standards that really appear to supersede what we have in our community with our planning and compliance requirements, our CC&Rs. And there are conflicts with the things that are written in there that need to be resolved. It has to do with parking, patio enclosures, garage enclosures, replacing garage doors, conversions, all those things. There are a number of things where there are conflicts. What we would like to do is, if at all possible, have you delay adopting this ordinance until we have a chance to get together as quickly as possible, and have an opportunity to work out the details, all in compliance with the state law, but trying to get this to where we have an ordinance that fits together nicely with the things that we're permitted to do. If that's not possible, we'd like to have the opportunity to meet with you as soon as possible anyway, to work out an implementation plan, because there's room within that ordinance to understand what the implementation is going to look like, especially as it relates to design and development standards. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Darcy Burke.
Hello again, and I have to apologize, and thank you, Jack, for reminding me. On March 14th, Elsinore Valley will host the community event known as Splash for the community from 10 to 2. You can actually come and tour some of our facilities. They'll have activities for the children. There's food, prizes, and if you want information on any of the rebates, staff will be on hand to do that. So thank you very much, Jack. I totally forgot. I was so worried about water quality and system maintenance, so thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not only that, they serve lunch, it's your only time to get some money back.
I have no more cards.
Okay, thank you.
That's a good program.
I think we're moving on to consent calendar.
Thank you. All items listed on the consent calendar are considered to be routine matters, status reports, or documents covering previous city council action. The items listed on the consent calendar may be enacted in one motion. With the concurrence of the city council, a council member may request that an item be removed for further discussion. Staff recommends approval of all items.
Anybody have any items that they want to move out of there?
Yeah, let's pull number 6.
Pardon me?
Number 6?
Number 6. Any others? Okay, then I have entertain a motion to approve the balance of the consent calendar.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and a second. Does this require a roll call vote?
Councilmember Bonner?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Point of clarification, we're approving all consent items other than item number 6.
Correct.
Aye.
Mayor Aaron
Aye.
Motion carried to approve the consent calendar with the exception of item number 6.
Thank you. Would you like to discuss item number 6?
Yeah, I think what the POA is recommending is important, but Chris, if you can jump in a little bit, I think we're, under a timeline here, is that correct?
Yes, and if I could, I've asked our planning director, Jim Worsey, to be here this evening. If he could come to the podium and maybe talk a little bit about what we're doing here. And perfect.
Mayor, members of the council, good evening. The accessory dwelling unit ordinance that was before the council was placed there as part of the adoption of the housing element in October. So we indicated to the state it was one of the programs we would implement, as referenced by the speaker. State law, a number of laws have been passed that they try to integrate them, requiring different provisions with to construct, provide for accessory dwelling units. We attempted to match that, and upon your last action, the last council meeting, we forwarded to the state as required for their review, state HCD. So this particular element is attached to not only the housing element, but also our request for SB2 funding. So we've indicated to the state we would take certain actions as part of the midterm housing element. And we accelerated those items to meet their requirements to demonstrate that we're moving forward on housing element programs. So it is part of the mix in order, one, to be in compliance with state law, two, meet the housing element requirements, three, obtain SB2 funding. So at this point, that's background on that particular issue. I would say with regard to staff and coordinating with the POA, we do that all the time. I was over there a number of times just today on special event permits and different things. So we work well together and discuss a variety of things. We do have a number of different requirements that just exist and have existed. Height requirements, we view height differently than the POA does. We have setback differences in the rear yard, those types of things. So I think those things may occur, but we work together on them and we inform the applicants. Make sure you discuss it with the POA. I think this may be an issue, and I believe they do the same thing for us.
Can I ask a question? So, Mr. Morrissey, what would be your recommendation? Do we need to move forward on this to stay in compliance and move forward in order to get our SB2 funds, or can we delay?
We've informed the state that action was taken on the document that the council was in favor of it. So we need to keep that motion going. The state expects that we will proceed on that. Like any ordinance, it can be amended if there's an issue related to that, but we really need to proceed.
So with that said, we can move forward, to try to obviously get the SB2 funding, but can meet with the POA and have a discussion.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, good.
That would be my recommendation.
That would be mine too.
Set up with whomever you've got on staff over there, Chris, to work out the different things that we need to do to work together. And obviously, we've got funding that's sensitive to us that will help us if we get it. And I mean, in the spirit of cooperativeness, we want to work together.
Who will our point person be?
I'll let the city manager determine who that would be.
Yeah, staff recommends that in order to not jeopardize our ability to pursue the SB2 funding, that we go ahead and move forward this evening. But then we also move forward with setting a meeting with the POA. I'd like to make sure that we can include Jim Morrissey in that meeting. And whoever else on the POA side, I'll take part in the meeting as well. I'd like to include our city attorney as well. And of course, ordinances can always be altered. So if as a result of those discussions, we find some changes that can be made without running afoul of the state requirements, that's something we can certainly consider at any point too.
Under that, if it's okay with you, Mr. Mayor, I'll make the motion that we move forward on ordinance number 197, consent calendar item number 6.
You have a second?
Second.
Councilman Green, second. Okay, we need another roll call vote for this, for item number 6.
Councilmember Bonner?
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem Castillo?
Aye.
Councilmember Green?
Aye.
Councilmember Smith?
Aye.
Mayor Aaron
Aye.
Motion carried to approve the second reading of ordinance number 197.
Thank you. We're going to move on to business items. I have an economic development update by Mr. Bill Blankenship.
I shouldn't have messed with it. It's like in my face. Good evening, Mayor Aaron Krantz, members of the council. It's my pleasure to be here this evening and to make a report. This is the second report before the council, and we are at the initial 6 months of my contract. I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity. It's been a great opportunity. I've enjoyed working with the staff and getting to know all of you on a much more personal and greater level. I think we've had great progress in the last 6 months, and I'm pleased with that progress. So as we began, we were first initially talking about the 2 BLM parcels, the 640-acre parcel and the 160-acre parcel, and we've continued to work on that, and we've had several key things that have happened since our last meeting where I reported to you all. The first thing, we met with an environmental consultant. Your city manager and I met with Cadre Environmental. He comes highly recommended from Riverside Conservation Authority. Had a great meeting with him. He gave us a proposal. I think Chris and I both felt it was a reasonable proposal. And as we continue to move forward on that, my guess will probably be coming back to you to ask your permission to go forward with that. He will eventually go out and do an assessment of both BLM parcels or one, depending on how the strategy changes as we talk through this tonight and in the coming weeks. And he will go out and he'll determine what kind of species are on those properties, and then that will give you as a city knowledge of how you proceed when the transfer occurs with BLM. Notice I said when, because I anticipate it's going to happen sooner than later. And what kind of mitigation that we would need to do there. In addition to that meeting, I think we had what I would like to say is a historic meeting here in the city. We met on February 18th. We had 15 attendees across the street at the golf course and country club. And I've been part of a lot of meetings over the years, and honestly, I think that's probably one of the best meetings that I've been part of. We had some very strong individuals. We had a member from Congressman Calvert's office. We had Doug Jeremia he's a field manager from Region 8 for BLM. And we had Karen Clary Rose, who's the division chief for U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service, who was here. Jonathan Ingram, who's the chair of the RCA, was here. Their legal counsel was here, as well as their reserve manager. In addition to that, we had a supervisor here from Cal Fish and Wildlife Service, and members from the city staff were there. Also, individuals who are responsible for the enforcement on the BLM lands, as well as rangers from U.S. Fish and Wildlife, Cal Fish and Wildlife were there. So it was a very good meeting. What I noticed, and I think your city manager did as well, those folks don't get in the room very often together all at once. It was great that this city was able to pull that meeting together and bring everybody to the table. I think we learned some interesting things, and I'm going to highlight a few of them. That some are disturbing, some I think it's good we know up front. One of the things that we learned is that on the acres that in that previously I talked to you about PQP, public quasi-public, those are BLM lands, and that's what is classified in the multi-species habitat conservation land or plan. Excuse me. So any of those PQP acres, and once the transfer occurs with BLM that you would actually develop, would have to be replaced. And what we did learn is that we may have to replace at a greater than a 1-for-1 per acre use. So if you use, of the 800 acres, if you use 200 acres, we may have to replace at a greater than a 1-per-1 acre. May. And the other thing, we got commitments from BLM as well as RCA to put flow charts together for us, so we knew exactly every step that we would need to take place. It's not just the transfer of ownership, it's the potentially finding additional lands to replace the lands that we would potentially develop in the future. There's also talk that maybe the city could, on the larger parcel, if it decided not to develop that parcel, that maybe recreation uses could be used on that parcel. We were also told that riparian habitat is considered very rare and hard to replace. We also were told about something that I think was great news. There's a program called PILT. It's payments in lieu of taxes, and it has to do, and it's federal payments to local governments that offset the losses of property taxes due to existence of non-taxable land within a city boundary. And that's something that the counties administer. Federal dollars go to the counties, and then the counties administer this. So that's one of the things I have on my action list to be doing on your behalf, is working with the county to see about getting some immediate funding, or as immediate in government terms, as soon as we can. So at least get us in that discussion and find out what that process is, so we can start moving that forward. There was $515.7 million in PILT dollars in 2019 that was appropriated by the federal government, and approximately $3 million went to Riverside County. So it's not an insignificant amount of money. It's certainly not as much as if the opportunity were to develop that land would generate. But I think what we heard in the meeting, it's a pretty tall order to do the transfer. Not to do the transfer from the BLM, that's a lengthy process, but once the transfer occurs and once development a plan is put in place, then it's the transfer. That to finding new land and getting that brought in the MSHCP. I think we were told that's only occurred once in the history of the MSHCP. Doesn't mean that we're not going to continue to break ground and maybe be the second to do that, but it's a big process. So we heard that in the meeting. I think the meeting was historic again, as I think your staff would concur. And I really believe it set the city as a leader and sent the message that the city is a good steward of the land and want to do the right thing at the end of the day. Additional issues that I have been working on, the zip code issue. I've had conversations with Congressman Calvert's office. Unfortunately, in the old days, back when I worked in Congress, getting a zip code for a city was a pretty easy thing. So when we talked about it a few months ago, I said, hey, no problem. And then I called Congressman Calvert's office, and I got an earful and that it is a problem now. The post office apparently is tired of just handing out zip codes. And I would say to a well-established city like this, it shouldn't be classified as just handing out a zip code. But then I was explaining that the city of Eastvale, that has upwards of 60,000 people in their city, has been working at this for now 4 years. They have federal legislation that is being authored by Congressman Calvert, and they still haven't been able to achieve it yet. The Congressman's office did commit that they would be willing to introduce legislation on behalf of the city, so it's my plan to help shepherd that along and make sure that that happens. In addition to that, we've had a meeting with a local developer who would like to partner maybe one day with the city on some possible development projects and some reconfiguration of land in the city. And we're getting ready to have a second meeting with that developer later this month. And I had the opportunity to bring in one of my board members previously when I worked at the BIA to come look at some land here. He's a landscape architect and wanted to see what kind of mitigation might be needed for that land. And that's kind of it. I also had a very extensive conversation with some folks regarding MS4 reporting that the city needs to be in compliance with, that the city's working on. So My go-forward plan for you all is this. Plan to continue working with Congressman Calvert's office on the BLM land transfer in addition to BLM, and working with the other agencies as required. I think now that we've had this meeting, there will be more interaction with all the agencies. I believe we need to refine the BLM strategy. I think we need to sit down and look at PILT as an option. I think we need to look at both parcels and see if we should still go after them at the same level of intensity. And then continue working with the Congressman's office on the zip code issue. I believe that's important. It's something that we should not walk away from, and we should push the process no matter how long it's going to take. And we have a congressman willing to do it, so we should do that as well. And then, like I said, we need to work on the PILT matter as well. I think that should probably be at the top of the priority list, and see what kind of funding is available and how quickly the city might get in line for that. And then continue working with the potential development partner and any other matter that comes up. So I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you for having me come out tonight and talk about our progress. And if there's any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you very much. Okay, you let me off easy. Thank you.
Come up the mic, Jen.
Reference to BLM, are we following the same program that we submitted many years ago, which was the west side, because of the topography, could not be developed, but the east side could, and I'm talking about the large section, and the small section over there naturally would work very well for the housing. Is that still the same program? I don't know what.
City manager?
Absolutely, thank you. Yes, so the answer is very long, but the short version is, it still remains the case that the east side, no, sorry, the west side is problematic for development. A lot of habitat there. There's a habitat corridor that goes close by there.
Right.
The east side of that, or the southeast portion of that parcel has more promise, but even that is going to be a pretty heavy lift. That whole northern parcel is, when it comes to the MSHCP and replacing that with other mitigation land, that's going to be a pretty tall order. Not that we should stop pursuing it. I think we still need to look at it. We may end up deciding that it makes more sense to attempt to apply the PILT program to that parcel, and then to focus development efforts on the parcel over by the Jump Lagoon. The parcel by the Jump Lagoon, we think, has tremendous possibilities still. And coming out of that meeting, we were able to drill down a little bit more on the specific areas of that parcel that might have promise. So I think the focus is primarily on the Jump Lagoon parcel, and continuing to look at and think about what might be able to be done on the northern parcel.
Okay, I just, the reason I bring it up is because we had very good success in them looking at the trail on the west side. And when it came down to Elsinore and that trail turned, it left us wide open for that building on the small parcel, which would be very, very good and beneficial to our city. And I think that's what Bill was working on. Yeah. And so I hope we stick with that. And, if I can help you on anything, I'll let you know.
Thank you, Jack.
Thank you, Jack. We're going to move on to.
I have one comment. I haven't filled out a card, but I will if necessary. We monitor very closely a section right outside the north gate. On the map, it says Dowling Street, but it isn't really a street. It looks like a fire trail, and there has been a gate there, and I think the property is owned by Pardee. It's not inside our city, but it goes way into the area near the Jump Lagoon. It's contiguous with a parcel just outside the gate. And the reason I bring this up is that this is going to be construction of houses. I've heard many different numbers, 140, 400, I don't know. But it's the second half of the Tuscany Hills development that they were going to do many years ago but stopped for various economic reasons. The reason I bring it up is that it's going to have a lot of impact on Canyon Lake, on the lake. It's going to have a lot of impact on air quality for all of us who live in our city. It's going to have a lot of impact on traffic on the 74 tremendously. So I just hope that somebody here, somebody for the council or somebody on the staff is monitoring that they're meeting with the city manager, Yates, and other people within the Lake Elsinore planning staff, because we need to be proactive. If it is, we can't wait for an incident to happen before we say, oh gee, well, you know, why are you doing that to us? We need to be sure that they understand that we're watching what's happening. And I remember years ago working with City Manager Yates on an issue where somebody above us in Tuscany Hills dumped a porta potty down the hill, and it landed in Canyon Lake right opposite Harrelson Park. And when we met with City Manager Yates, he said, no, that's in Canyon Lake, that has nothing to do with us. He did not understand that all the houses above the campground are in Lake Elsinore, not in Canyon Lake. So the reason I bring that up is we need to proactively inform the people in Lake Elsinore that our property is directly below, and whatever happens in construction is going to have a tremendous effect on all of the houses directly along that property. So I urge you to form a plan, meet with them, and find out when they're going to start construction. We have been appalled at how quickly things are happening. Went from stakes to people coming out and measuring, and now the gate is open to allow trucks to go in. So it's happening fast. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to item number 9, Public Works update. Mike Borgia.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm going to do an overview. It's kind of a continuance of a presentation I did last year in regards to public works projects on Railroad Canyon Road in general. Stuff that I've been working on constantly every single day.
All day long.
If you recall, this was a project that was brought to our attention by City Council. This project is finally completed. Kudos to Councilmember Smith for bringing this to our attention, because this project helped to prevent some of the situations that we're having out there with some of the traffic that was coming out of Audie Murphy and our Eastport area. So project is done, and it's been trouble-free out there from what I understand. The wrought iron fence project. This was a project we just finished this past, actually it was the beginning of this month, or I'm sorry, the end of last month, I should say. It was a project that was approved by City Council back in November. A contract was awarded to AB Fence Company. It was a company that did phase 1 of our fence project, I believe in 2018. They did part of the work that had to be done had to be to replace a lot of the panels. A big portion required to be primed and repainted, mainly on the side over by the country club and the ponds of Elsinore Valley Municipal Water District. Again, the project was completed at the end of February, and SB1 funds cover the entire funds of the project. Landscape and irrigation maintenance. This is a continuance, project that I deal with on a day-to-day basis. Just recently, well, actually in September of last year, our contract with CTI Landscape ended. We've been on a month-to-month plan with them since then. We finally have gone out to bid. It took me a while to get that bid process going, but we finally got out to bid. We're looking to do a bid opening in a couple weeks. And and maybe, and actually if everything goes as planned, because sometimes too, although we go through the whole bid opening process, there could be some delays in the whole application process too, but the idea is to hopefully go to city council approval of the new contract in April. Monuments. About a month and a half ago, we started a project where we're going to rehab our monuments. They were starting to get a little discolored, little faded. One of the, if you guys remember when I did this project, I had this great idea of putting a light in that little lighthouse of our monument. It wasn't a great idea, it was just never a good idea. I can never get it to work right. And I want to say maybe about 3 months ago, we had the one on the west end burned through the acrylic because of the lighting that's on there. So I don't know if it had to do with the weather, you know, that maybe wet water could have gone into it that maybe caused the short, but it's just been a problematic thing since day one. The idea was great, but it just didn't work as planned. So the rehab is to repaint the monuments. We're gonna install reflective vinyl seal and the lighthouse, so that way when the vehicles come at night, it'll reflect and you can see that seal and the lighthouse on there. It's an easier solution than trying to run electrical to that little lighthouse. So again, we're removing the lighthouse lights again because it got damaged. And again, all this is going to be funded through our gas tax. Unfortunately, during the time of our rehab, we had that tragic accident in late January. And unfortunately, it took out one of the monuments on the east end of our Railroad Canyon Road. So not only that, but it actually took out more. It caused a lot of damage, but nevertheless, I'm looking to get that going. Fortunately, we did have a third monument as a spare monument. It was actually with the vendor that we purchased it with. They kept it for us because they were getting so much attention of it having it in their showroom that they wanted to have it there so whenever a vendor came through, they can see that, hey, they do monuments too. So, but it's now getting repainted. It's gonna match the colors that we're looking to do. This accident caused roughly about $35,000 in damage, which includes the monument as well. I think the monument alone, with the rehab and reinstall, is somewhere around close to about $20,000 in itself. So, good thing is, like I said, we have that third monument, so we're expected to have that installed and the acrylics put on the other monument, because I'm sure you guys seen the other monument has nothing on the face of it. Everything should be done Monday of next week, if all goes as planned. Weather permitted too. Sometimes weather permits us to delay it a bit. Trash capture compliance. This was something that was brought to us, to our attention, by the State Water Resource Control Board back in, I believe it was in early of 2017. This was something that a statewide trash provision that cities were required to follow through, and basically per the Santa Ana Regional Water Board, Canyon Lake is required to select a method of compliance to adopt a jurisdictional map or a trash implementation plan. There's a whole process to this thing. We had an option of picking 2 different types of methods to be able to come to compliance. We picked the one that was more simple for us to do, which kind of makes sense for us. But this provision requires cities to upgrade their catch basins and inlets that serve high-density residential, commercial, and shopping centers. So in this next slide, although it's somewhat difficult to see, there's a total of about 7 inlets on Railroad Canyon Road that we have to address. Again, this is in relation to high-density residential and commercial for Canyon Lake. So high-density would be the condos on Railroad Canyon Road, and the shopping center is obviously, of course, here in the town center. So these trash capture devices are something that we have to address in these locations. This is an example of what a trash capture device looks like. Again, this is an example. There's various different kinds of trash capture devices, but if you look at it here, basically what it is, trash goes into your storm drains. There's a device that captures the trash and then allows the water to kind of flow through. So this is just one example. This is not something that we have to do specifically. It can be determined on once we get a closer view of what these inlets look like. Again, so this was a provision that was effective December of 2015. Cities were notified by 2017. We had a report whether we wanted to do a track 1 or track 2 compliance in September 2017. Submittal of an implementation plan by December 2018, although we didn't get it in on time because for other reasons. We're looking to send that in probably tomorrow. The December 2030 that's for a final compliance with having to have these trash capture devices put in by that time. The reason why it's such a long time is because a lot of cities have hundreds of them, maybe even thousands of them. Fortunately for Canyon Lake, we just have those 7 that we have to address. But for other cities, it could take years to do, so that's why the time frame is so long. Future projects, sound wall repair. This was something that we've already gone out to receive SB1 funds already. So this is a project that I'm hoping to do here soon. We'll probably go out to bid hopefully in a couple months. We're also looking to service our pump station motor and pump. Since I have been here, I don't think they've ever been pulled in service. So they should be serviced regularly, and they haven't. So that's something that we have to do potentially in the near future. Hopefully this coming fiscal year. And then some landscape improvements. There's still a lot of things that we need to do on the landscape in the center medians that maybe we can kind of address. We need to improve some of the irrigation lines that are out there, add some more DG to the medians. If you guys notice too as well, the mulch that we put in, literally in less than a year, it's already faded. The weather just beat it, that it's now faded. So maybe we might consider looking at other options other than mulch. You know, there is rubber mulch that we kind of look at that maybe that can do that. So I don't know. Another project that I didn't put on here is a project that I'm also working on is the ADA improvements for City Hall. That is something that we're kind of waiting with county. I think they finally gave us approval for those additional funds that we allocated recently. So I think we have somewhere around $42,000 that we're going to use to do some ADA improvements here too as well. Questions? Yes.
I believe I heard that the lieutenant say that there was an arrest made in that fatal traffic accident.
Yes.
Are we seeking restitution for the amount of the monument, or is that covered by insurance? Or?
It's always covered through insurance. That's typically how we kind of do it. I did get a portion of the report today, but I didn't get everything that I needed in order to submit. Obviously, you know, everything's been cleaned up over there. We've received invoices, we paid invoices. I'm pretty much ready to go. It's really dependent upon the incident report.
Okay.
It's not fully completed just yet. In talking to to Lieutenant just now, he said that he thinks maybe I should have it in a couple of weeks. It's been a long delay, and it's because of the gravity of the incident itself as to why it delayed so long.
Thank you.
Question?
Thanks so much.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike, real quick, gets the project that we completed on the lights. That didn't cost us anything, right? That was on Medfee?
Yes, it was.
Okay, just want to make sure, because I saw four grand on there, but that wasn't to us.
It wasn't.
They fixed it.
Initially, we thought it was going to be a
Right.
co-share thing. No. In reality, it was there. I mean, because, that
Yeah.
entire intersection is in their jurisdiction.
Exactly.
So the fact that we addressed it was
Was
good.
enough.
And it didn't cost us
Doesn't cost us anything. I love it. Thank you.
Moving on to business item number 10. Our city clerk is going to give us an update on some projects.
Thank you. I'm going to give you a brief overview of some projects that we've been working on in the city clerk's office. I say we because I've had a lot of help from our WRCOG fellow Megan, who's here in the audience today. She's going to be presenting as well, but I've had a lot of help from her, so together we've tackled a lot of these projects. So I'm going to start with digitizing city records. Last year, the city council approved a budget for the city to digitize city records. So we went out, we purchased our software with Laserfiche, and we contracted with ECS Imaging, who is our Laserfiche provider. ECS has been very flexible with their schedule, and they've been very great in helping us set up our repository system. This is a very small picture of what our repository system looks like. It's basically just an online system where all of our files are going to be kept. All of our data is going to be stored here. So they went through, they met with the departments, they got a lot of feedback from me. They pretty much set everything up for us, all of our different departments, and pretty soon we're going to start working on having them scan all of our documents. The goal is to have all of the permanent documents scanned into this system, and then eventually we're going to hopefully push those documents out, do some type of web link where it's going to be available on the city's website, and then the public can access those documents whenever they choose to.
When do you think you'll have it digitalized?
I'm hoping that within the next couple of weeks, we'll start the process. Currently, we're going to start with our building and safety department. We'd like to get all of the permits scanned in first. The majority of our public records requests, I would say, are for permits. The requests come in for the building and safety department. So the goal is to get those permits scanned in first. It will tremendously help the department to be able to search the documents. So once we get all of those documents scanned in, we'll determine how much monies we have left, or if we need to budget a little bit more. We'll just kind of determine where we are at that point, and then we'll continue to go forward. But we're definitely starting within the next couple of weeks. ECS is going to be on site, I would say, also within the next few weeks, and they're going to be training city staff as to how to search the repository and just give us different tips and tricks and things that we can do to be more efficient. So then we move on to our destruction of city records. So we had a records cleanup day, that's what I like to call it. Staff came in on Saturday, February 8th. We had our finance director, Terry Shea, here. We had our accountant, Kayla. Our city manager was here. Mike was here. Our WRCOG fellow was here. We all came in on a Saturday. We were in this room and we basically just went through boxes and boxes of records that needed to be destroyed. They had already exceeded their retention periods per the records retention schedule. And so we spent almost an entire day going through records. Then we called our very happy friend, you can't see him, but he's happy there. His name's Dave, he's from Shred Pros, and we determined a total of 40 boxes were eligible for destruction. Dave came out, he shreds everything on site. So within 30 minutes, all of the boxes were gone. So it was a good day. He was here on the 27th, and it was very quick and painless. So that's something that I'm looking to do every year. Ideally, I'd like to do a destruction of records every February going forward. I'd like to give you guys an update on our military banner program. We recently adopted this new design. We updated our application. We updated our process for the military banner. Unfortunately, I have not pushed the program as much as I should have, and so we have only received 2 applications. So I'm a little disappointed by that, but with that being said, I will be pushing this program for the next month. We're gonna post it on social media. I'm gonna send it to anyone and everyone who wants to be a part of this program, anybody that wants to help me promote it on their social media. I would appreciate the help. Mayor Pro Tem Castillo, I know you have quite a big following on social media, so maybe you can help in that area, but 2 applications is what we have currently. So what we'd like to do is set a deadline of Wednesday, April 15th. We'd like to have a minimum of 6 applicants by the 15th in order for us to go forward with having the applicants attend the city council meeting on May 6th. If we can get a total of 6 applicants or more, we can then invite all of the applicants to come to the May 6th city council meeting, and we can present them with their banners. They can take pictures, they can take pictures with the council, and we can just make it a very nice ceremonial item, to honor them. And then ideally, the installation of the banners would be expected to be completed prior to Memorial Day. So our goal is to have 2 installations per year, one before Memorial Day and one before Veterans Day. So within the next month, we will be posting an ad in the Friday Flyer. Again, I'll be sending it to all of you, and maybe you guys can post on your social media. I look to the public for everybody to share this program. I think it's a great program. We've got a beautiful new banner. It's a great design. So I really, really encourage the public to take part and hopefully purchase the banner.
Where will they be installed?
So the installation, we're taking requests as to where, if there's a specific location that you would like the banner to be installed, we'll take requests and it'll be first come, first served. As long as we can accommodate that request, then if the pole is available, then we'll put it up wherever you would like. So we have a few poles available on Railroad Canyon, not very many, but then the majority of them would be in the town center.
What's the age limit?
You're too young, Jack.
You want old guys?
So at this time, I would like to call Megan Nazarino. She is our WRCOG fellow. She's going to give you a brief update on our contract management system. This is something that Megan's been working very hard on. She's been doing a great job. Our contracts were a little outdated, and when I asked her to just kind of take an inventory of the contracts, she just kind of took off and made this entire program and put it together. She's done an amazing job, and I'm just so excited for her to share this with you, and I'm just really thankful that she was able to do that for us.
Well, good evening, Mayor, Council, staff, and residents. Thank you for having me and for that very kind introduction. The project I wanted to introduce you is the contract management system that I have been working on. And originally, the project and assignment I was given was to just review and update the physical contracts we had in place. But you learn very quickly that contracts, especially when there are hundreds of them, are time-consuming and an essential part of city administration. So my goal was to not just review and update the contracts, but create a system that would make it easier for the staff in the future to run this much more efficiently and effectively. And with that, I used Microsoft Access. It took some time to learn, but we got there. And I mirrored the original PDF we had, so it would be easy to just input all the information of a contract, a summary of it, and Microsoft Access will do all the work, get all that data, and then turn it into reports that you need, which is contracts that are about to expire, missing insurance documents you might have, and also who you should contact whenever necessary. It's still a bit rudimentary since it just got started, but it's something that can definitely be improved upon, maybe even by a future fellow. So we'll see where that goes. My whole goal with this project is that it will just mitigate the risks that come with handling contracts, as well as just making life much easier for the staff in a cost-effective way. So thank you, that's what I had to present. And with that is,
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Awesome job.
Okay, so lastly, I have just a few future projects that I'd like to discuss. We've got our Veterans Day event. This year, Veterans Day falls on Wednesday, November 11th. So we've got our first Veterans Day committee meeting hopefully scheduled for April sometime. We don't have an exact date yet, but staff will be working with Mayor Pro Tem Castillo to set a date, but we'd like to get that started in April. Our next event is the 30th Anniversary Gala and State of the City Address. That event will take place on Tuesday, December 1st. We have already been in communication with the POA, and we've already been able to place a hold on the room. So we're very excited that we will be able to hold it on the day of the city's incorporation. And so we're in our event planning process with that as well. Lastly, we have our Winter Wonderland event 2020. So city staff actually already had our first meeting with the Canyon Lake Family Matters Club. We met with them on February 19th. We have agreed on a date of Saturday, December 5th for the Winter Wonderland. It will take place from 4 to 8 p.m. And we've already been in contact with the vendor that provided all of the services at the last event. We've placed a hold with them, and so all of our planning for this event is underway. We had really good conversations with the Family Matters Club. We talked about the things that worked at the last event, the things that didn't work, things that could be improved upon, different ways that they're going to be able to assist us this year, just a lot of different things, maybe additional sponsorships that they can help us, you know, people they can reach out to. So it was a really, really good meeting. The city manager was present, our admin services manager, so it was a good conversation. So we're happy to announce that it will be Saturday, December 5th, and we will be, obviously as we get closer, we'll be, you know, putting flyers together and we'll be making more announcements. But for now, you can all put placeholders for these 3 dates. And so those are the projects that I have. Can I answer any questions from the council?
Good job.
Thank you.
Does anybody need a life break? Okay, before we move on to city manager comments, I just wanted to hope that everybody enjoyed. We have a little different format now, where we're trying to involve city staff so that people recognize you and hear from you and get you a little more involved with the city activities. So thank everybody for participating tonight. Our city clerk, our fellow, Mike Borgia, and there'll be more, I'm sure, from time to time. So thank you again for your participation tonight. And with that, we will move on to city manager comments.
All right, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Well, as you've already heard, it's been a busy start to the year. A lot going on. I'm going to run through just a few of the things that we've been working on. Ordinance 192, which is our residential rental program, became effective on February 15th. You may have heard that notices went out from the city last week, and we've been receiving quite a bit of feedback. Some of it positive, some of it not so positive. But I think staff is doing a fantastic job fielding the questions that are coming in and answering some of the concerns. Just a reminder that anyone who registers their rental property between now and June 30th gets 50% off the business license fee. So we've had quite a few people who've come in wanting to take advantage of that already. We are still in negotiations with CR&R to writing our franchise agreement with them. We have agreed on all the deal points and have received a first draft of the amended agreement, which is being reviewed reviewed by our attorney, and we expect to wrap that up shortly. You can expect Prop 218 notices to go out in April for that, and we're targeting a public hearing in June, so that all of that can be in place by the start of the new fiscal year, July 1. We're also working diligently on the voluntary EMS subscription program, working out the logistics there. Staff is working on a fee analysis. We can, again, with this as well, we can expect Prop 218 notices to go out in April, along with the notice for the trash hauling services. Also looking to do a public hearing in June, and the goal is to be up and running prior to July 1st on the EMS subscription program as well. ESCI is continuing their work on our fire department feasibility study. We have a target completion in June. We expect that they will be out here in Canyon Lake at some point in April doing interviews with the council and with members of the community. This becomes more important to us all the time. We received our latest invoice from the county for 3 months of fire service. It is by far the largest invoice we've ever seen. The previous invoice came in a little over $500,000, which was at that point the largest invoice you'd ever seen. This last invoice came in at $607,000 for 3 months for one engine.
With no fires?
$607,000.
$607,000.
$607,000. It is just not sustainable. So it is within the budget that we were given by the county, but you know, that budget has us in a deficit situation. So it is important that we continue evaluating our options. We're hopeful that the feasibility study will come back and provide us an option or two. Similarly, Citygate is working on their feasibility study for the police JPA with our neighboring cities. We expect to hear from them soon. They've just this week received everything that they've been looking for from the Sheriff's Department. And so in the next couple of weeks, we expect them to be scheduling in-person meetings with the council. And that's moving pretty much at the same pace as the ESCI study. You heard from Bill Blankenship about some of the economic development work we're doing. Bill's a humble guy. He's working on a lot more than he even shared with you. He's been instrumental in helping us with some property acquisition issues lately, and helping us evaluate possibly some potential annexation issues, which will become increasingly important in the future, I think. Another economic development issue, the issue of cannabis has come up. There's renewed interest in looking at that. Our current sales tax consultant, HDL, does quite a bit of work in this field, and so we've been talking with them, and they are helping us put together a process by which we can evaluate this. The mayor several months ago appointed an ad hoc committee. The ad hoc committee has met 2 or 3 times, Monday the latest, and we have what we think is a process in place to evaluate how and if the city should move forward. HDL is working on a draft possible revised regulatory ordinance that we expect to be able to bring to you hopefully at the April council meeting to take a look at. If the council decides to move forward, HDL will have an application process for us that will basically open up to RFPs, will give us a way to evaluate those proposals, to score them and rank them. And then if we find a satisfactory applicant at that point, to move forward with a development agreement, which would come back to the council for approval. So just a heads up that that's in the works and something that will be coming before you in the near future. The city is hiring for a management analyst position. The application period opened 2 weeks ago. It's been advertised on the city's website, on Indeed, governmentjobs.com, and Western City. So far, we've received 15 completed applications. We've glanced through them. Some of them look very strong. The deadline to apply is tomorrow at 5 o'clock. Interviews will be next week, and we have a target start date of April 1st. So we would have someone on board quickly, given all that we have going on right now. And lastly, tomorrow I will be in Torrance at the Municipal Management Association of Southern California's Winter Forum. The topic is strategic planning. So in line with one of our goals, I look forward to learning about what other cities are doing, putting together their strategic plans. Thank you very much. That's all I have.
Thank you. Move on to council reports, starting with Councilman Bonner.
Well, I always start with RCDC. I just want to mention that Ann Mayer is the executive director, has been the executive director for RCDC for 10 years. And she was also District 1 for Caltrans, so she got an extensive experience and brought a lot to this county to deal with all these traffic and things we're trying to do. And that traffic relief that she talked about, and I sometimes only emphasis on the highway and the freeway, but it's more than that. It's buses and it's rail, it's both bike trikes, it's a whole bunch of things that we're gonna be looking at the next 30 years. So we're pretty excited about it. The decision is, are we gonna, as a commission, are we gonna increase or recommend, it's gonna go to the public and vote in November if to increase the tax by 0.5%. So we'll find out what that's going to happen. I got elected to the vice chair of the budget and implementation committee meeting, so I got a little more activity there. And then Ann mentioned this Railroad Canyon Exchange. It's been going on for a long time, like 20 years. And Bob McGee from Lake Elsner was very instrumental of getting this thing finally moving forward. So we're really happy, and it's going to make a big decision on Railroad Canyon Road and coming off on 15. So that's good. The next roundtable is next Monday, the 9th at 8 o'clock at the Country Club. And that's the one with the city and the POA and the Water District and law enforcement. And then I'm going to attend Ron Hartley's service at Canyon Lake Community Church on Friday, or Friday on at 11 o'clock. So I'm going to do that. And then I hate to take, the mayor took all the words from me, but I was going to say, Chris, thank you for getting your staff. You know, it's nice to see them getting up in front, and they're doing an incredibly good job, and we appreciate all the good work your whole staff does. Thank you.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Castillo.
Thank you. I too wanted to say thank you to staff. I enjoyed your presentations today. Thanks, Bill, for coming and giving us the update. Also, I wanted to say thank you, Nancy, for your comments regarding development. They were well taken, and I was kind of shocked to learn of that. So I'm glad that our community members are coming and bringing information forward to the council, and I appreciate it. It's nice to see a lot of different faces in the audience today, so hopefully you'll come back next month as well. In April, we have Lejwa Summit on the 29th. I'm looking forward to that. I hope our staff are going to attend as well. I'm very much obsessed with our Veterans Day Committee. I want to extend the invitation to any community members who want to volunteer on that date. I think our veteran celebrations have just, always been something that's very important to this community, and so I want to make sure that if any member of the community feels like they would like to help out, that they understand that they're, very much welcome. Our banners look fantastic, and I would, be honored to make sure that the community is aware that we are taking applications for those people to be recognized. I'm excited about our upcoming events, but I just wanted to say over the last year I've been really impressed with the quality of work and professionalism the city staff has exhibited, and so thank you to all of you.
Thank you. Councilmember Green.
Thank you. It's been a busy month. I got the opportunity and honor to go to Student of the Month to represent our city. It's quite an event at the Lakeside School at Lake Elsinore. Also, the RCA board, the executive board, which I'm a member, we have totally revamped the website to make it user-friendly. It's going to also be educational. It will also be available for developers if they want to know what their fees are going to be. This will be an interactive live. We totally brought in a consultant to use the modern techniques. Instead of static displays, everything is moving. Species of the month, every month we have a species. There's 138, maybe I'm wrong, maybe 146 species that are identified here in Riverside County. So we're very active, from little salamanders to raptors. And we will have the opportunity as board members, once a month, our faces will be on the interactive video to discuss things that are going on with RCA, as well as the species of the month. We're also trying to focus on our educational side, which will have a website where the kids at different schools will be able to understand what's going on, what the ecosystems are. And at the end of the year, there will be a scholarship that will be issued that will go to one student of the month, and there'll be projects that they will be able to compete with to get that honor. We also worked on everybody was talking about the poppy bloom for this year. It won't happen. The weather conditions are different. It's drier. The bloom has already started. It's going to be minimal. But anticipating that we would have another big impact on the local systems in Lake Elsinore, we proposed to do a unified command on how bring all the agencies in that would be responsible, from Caltrans to you name it, CHP, the city. The city of Lake Elsinore last year had over $600,000 in city funds that went out. And that is including all the stuff that's out that cost them to manage that poppy bloom. Everybody laughs, but I bet you the ticket's going to be well over $1 million plus, just because the outside agencies, overtime and everything else, plus the things that went down. So it sounds funny, it's not funny. And so what we're trying to do as a county and as local jurisdictions, we're trying to develop contingency plans based on different scenarios so we better can react to them. And last, we've got a staff training for ICS next week. And our staff will be going through ICS 100, 200, and 700. And that will be on Tuesday, Mike? Tuesday or Wednesday?
Wednesday.
Wednesday. So anyway, that's it. Thank you all for coming. Have a good evening.
Thank you. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We're almost there. We're almost through. Hang in there. I want to give a couple updates. I get the opportunity to sit on RTA, Riverside Transportation Agency, and the director of RCTC spoke a little bit about some of the issues that we have electrifying the future. And it's a big problem ongoing when you take a big bus and you try to make it electric, and how do we charge it, and how do we use it throughout the day and find solutions. And so it's going to be a big problem with public transportation trying to achieve this goal by 2030. So RTA has taken several different approaches, looking at new technology and trying to implement them, and seeing if we can start different pilot programs so we can be compliant, so we can receive our state and federal funding. As far as ridership in the community throughout Riverside County, we're trending up. We got a lot of good college programs in place, so we're doing good on the PR side of things with that. I also get the ability to sit on SCAG, Southern California Association of Governors, and one of the big things that I learned from last month's meeting is that LAX is under a tight deadline to try to rehab a bunch of different ports, and they're going to be spending hundreds of millions of dollars. So there's going to be traffic, and there's going to be delays, and there's going to be, this is an ongoing project they finally put in place. So if you're planning on traveling through LAX, you're going to be upset. We'll just make it that simple. It's going to be very difficult, and it's going to take a couple of years for that project to be completed. The last thing I want to say is everyone's paying attention to the news, please wash your hands. Be very careful. Make sure you have hand sanitizer with you. I think Costco and Walmart has sold out of hand sanitizers and water and all that you can think of. So just take an extra step and maybe buy some hand sanitizer, and just be mindful of that, because there's a lot of diseases that, as you all are aware of what's going on right now in California. So just be careful with that. Other than that, I'm excited to see the direction of the city. Some great updates from our staff. There's so many things happening at City Hall, folks, and I hope most of you out there who are listening or who are participating in these meetings can see all the work that is being done and the growth that is happening here in Canyon Lake, because it is exciting times. I think we're moving in the right direction. So I just want to say thanks again for all the hard work, everyone. Thank you to my colleagues, and let's keep moving forward. Let's make 2020 great.
Thank you. My turn at this particular time. Monday, I attended the WRCOG meeting. One of the first things we had was an update from the county's public health officer, Dr. Cameron Kaiser, and most of everything that we were told you've heard or read in the papers. The main thing, the theme, I believe, was not to panic. It's not to be something to take lightly, but it's not something to be on your lips all the time talking about, because this too is going to pass. So whatever it is that is taking place, it's going to disappear soon, according, and I'm quoting Dr. Cameron Kaiser, so hopefully he's correct. We have an update on the PACE program. A number of PACE programs were approved this past month, and one of the things that was talked about was that an extended 5-day right to cancel for seniors. There have been, just like so many other things, some scams, some people rushing into signing up for things that they're not realizing what it is exactly that they're getting. So now there's a 5-day right to refuse this. And also not allowing PACE assessment when a reverse mortgage exists on the property. Well, we're not in the WCE at this particular time, so we may be getting into that again soon. The Executive Committee approved 3 TUMP reimbursement agreements with the City of Riverside for construction phases of the Iowa Avenue widening project from University to Martin Luther King, the City of Menifee for the construction phases of Holland Avenue I-250 interchange, as well as engineering and construction phases of Newport Road widening from Bradley Road to Marietta Road. We had a presentation by Ann Meyer, which was pretty much similar to the one that she gave here today, so I'm not going to repeat that. We had a presentation about the census. UCR and Riverside County are jointly working on outreach efforts for the forthcoming 2020 census. The focus is underrepresented. The focus is on, underrepresented communities to ensure that all people in the county are counted. Data from the census is a key factor for determining funding, elected official representation, and other related items. At SCAG, we had a presentation, it's called Pathway 2045. In the year 2045, people will think of gas appliances as dated, like wood stoves, and in cabins, I believe, is what they were referring to. Gas pumps will be tucked in the corner, while electric charging stations are front and center. Coal will be a things kids learn about in museums. 1995 was 25 years ago. 2045 is just as far away, but they're expected to be moving away from fossil fuel. At that time, electric demand will increase 60%. Electric cars will equal about $1.50 per gallon in savings. Car dealers, which I found is interesting, are not disclosing that rebate for electric is available. I don't know how many of you have bought electric vehicles or if you've gotten rebates. This was something I knew nothing about at the time. In the future, all buildings will be electric. Right now, Santa Monica is putting in I believe it's called a beach code. How to enforce it, we're not just exactly sure, but this is something that is going to be tried very shortly. At least there'll be no gas for space heating or for water. But if we eliminate gas, where does all the equipment go? problem is, it's gonna go to landfills, so now we have another problem. So, we get rid of one, and another one comes along. Also, there was quite a bit of conversation about power shutoffs and undergrounding utility line. And of course, we all know how expensive that is, but that's the recommendation in the future. Hopefully, this can be accomplished. Right now, though, when the power is shut off, there are a lot of people that are vulnerable. So there's a program that it's sort of like a neighborhood watch. People should be aware of their neighbors who may not have access to cell phones, generators, whatever it may be in case if there's a power shut off. But now the problem again, the flip side is with these generators, they contribute to air pollution. So we've got another problem. We eliminate one and we start another one. And if there's no power, how are you going to get gas at the gas stations? This hasn't been exactly formalized just yet. I may have some good stuff here, but I'm not sure what it is just yet. But I just make notes of things that I'd like to discuss. And I think that is about all that I had from SCAG. I do have a report from Vector, but it's quite lengthy. It's really a little more informative than it is humorous. It's about the Lyme disease and what they're doing about that. And as I've said in conclusion of most of the meetings, I have an abundance of material here. If anybody wants it, I'd be glad to share it with them. But I think I put you to sleep if I tell you all about it here tonight, so I'm going to pass on that. And I think that's about all, although we did meet the other day with Congressman Calvert and his staff members discussing the BLM land. And as we all know, Calvert is a good friend of ours, and certainly happy to see that he's going to be returning to his position. And with that said, I would just like to say one other thing, and certainly don't want to put Councilman Smith on the spot, but I can't thank him enough for participating in the election. I know that it's probably disappointing to him. He has come in third, I believe. And of course, the Assembly's loss right now is our gain. So we're very happy. Well, I guess it's mixed emotions, but I'm thrilled that you're still on the council. And I certainly want to thank you again for the opportunity to serve in the Assembly, and your day will come.
Hey, Mayor, he came in second out of the 4 Republicans, and he got over 12,000 votes. So he did an incredibly good job, and we thank him for everything he did for Canyon Lake.
See, we're all keeping statistics on you. So thank you again. And with that, the next regular council meeting is on appropriately April Fool's Day, April the 1st. And hopefully you'll all be here. Thank you for participating, and thanks to the staff for everything that you've done. Have a good night. And the time is 8:25.